Good morning, Lake County. This is 88.1 FM KPFZ, and today we're doing again Get to Know Your Candidate with John Brosnan, who is a candidate for District 3 for Lake County Board of Supervisors. Please make sure and check out his contact info. His website is www.brosnan4district3.com. All numbers are numbers and not written out. Go to Facebook and look up Brosnan for District 3 as well. And he's open to have you contact him personally at 707-501-7175. Please make sure to contact him if you... 7157.
Is this mic on? I don't know.
7157. I'm sorry about that.
Is this mic on? Hello?
I'm hearing you.
Okay.
Hopefully everyone else on the radio is hearing you as well.
All right.
And so thank you for tuning in. We seem to have this as a regular show. It's been happening for a while, and it seems we're going to keep going all the way till the primaries happen. So, John, how are you today?
I'm good. A little tired from yesterday's running around, but other than that, I'm good.
And it's not going to end until the primaries are over.
Right.
So over the weekend, everybody, I'm sure, celebrated Mother's Day with some special woman in their life. And I know that I did that with my wife and my family, and that was very enjoyable. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Yesterday morning, I went over to the Spring Valley Community Center and celebrated and campaigned with all the mothers and children over there at the center. They had about 100 people show up. So
nice.
Yeah.
And they were serving food over there?
Serving crepes and omelets and all kinds of good stuff, bacon and sausage and all that stuff.
That's high-class stuff right there. Crepes
yeah,
are that's my specialty right there, and being Frenchman here.
Actually, they had great strawberry crepes there.
That's beautiful. And how was the campaigning portion of it for you?
It was okay. I was there, and then I guess right when I was in town, I saw Marv drive up with his partner, and then when I got to the center, Marv and his partner was already there, and I was waiting for my partner from work, who also lives in Jack Smalley, who lives in Spring Valley, and then Jim Steele showed up, and of course Mark Courier was back there on the grill, just hacking away at those hash browns and potatoes and whatever else he was doing back there. He really served a great breakfast, and it was really well attended, and he's very well respected in his community. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever have I know when I ran for city council, there's sometimes that uncomfortable campaigning moment where, is this the right place to campaign? Am I pushing too hard? I know this is Mother's Day. Was there anything like that that's uncomfortable, or was it very comfortable for all of the candidates for them to be able to go ahead and speak with the public?
Well, I can't speak for the other candidates, right?
Of course.
And I didn't see any obvious display of displeasure of my presence being there, but early on in the campaign, Herb Gura came over to Upper Lake Main Street, which is to the Oddfellows Hall, which is about a block from my house, and had through his campaign. I didn't see anything wrong with that. He actually drew in a good crowd, about almost 100 people, and unfortunately of which only about 4 were from District 3, but he had a great following, and he had Roy Zimmerman on, and
that's correct.
It was a great event. I attended that, and I supported his campaign, and so for me, ever since then, I just feel that this is politics. This is a democracy. This is America, right? And we should all have I would think that all citizens would want to encourage all candidates to be available for everybody's visual observation and be able to talk to them and question them. And
the best way to get the answers is to ask the question to the source.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Maybe it's just my personality that makes me feel uncomfortable sometimes during those moments.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think everybody gets a little uncomfortable, but as I say, as I look back and review, I realize that, this is okay. I had some people tell me they were voting for this person and that person, and I just say thank you and consider me if you like at the last 11th hour, but it's all you can do, right?
And the best part is you're meeting people. You're getting to know their views and their perspective, which adds on to your views and your perspectives.
I'm getting to know their views, but I'm also getting to know them as people, actually. Yeah. That's what's really been happening. If you really want to talk about what's been going on in my campaign trail, it's like I've made more friends now. I am so grateful that I took this effort on myself. It's been a real challenge without, a quote, a campaign manager. You, Bruno, have been probably the closest thing I've had to that. You've helped me a great deal with my website and putting everything together and co-hosting this show. Without you, it's a difficult show to perform. And Jack Smalley and Steve Fedler, who are my co-partners in an LLC that I have. So I feel really grateful for you guys. But really what's been happening is I've been facing a lot of my own fears, my own personal fears, like don't go there. They already got a sign. They're not going to talk to you. And, and I go anyway. And I knock on the door and I find out that 9 out of 10 times these are wonderful people and they're willing to listen. They're very, I don't know, just precious and priceless people I've met. And I've made new friends and I've met people that ride motorcycles like me and have similar things in common. And I've met men who have farms with who are beekeepers and have 400 walnuts, and we're buddies and we travel around, and it just keeps getting better. I'm going out Saturday and Sunday out to the catfish roundup or whatever it is for the Fireman's Hall down there in the Oaks. I'll be down there working down there on the barbecue, and I'm just really I'm grateful, very grateful for all this experience.
And what's awesome is what you're speaking about when you're meeting all these people seems to fit right into your platform of exposing the diversity.
Right.
And I really like that because it's very real.
It is real.
Please call in to the show. The number is 263-3435. We will be discussing topics soon here, but please give us your input because we definitely value your input here on this show. So one of the things that I know, I believe it's on your mailer, and we've discussed it multiple times, is that you would like to see township/hamlet representation within District 3 to help create a, before I explain it, how about I let you explain it, just in case I explain it wrong. What are you looking for, and how does that help in getting what District 3 requires from the Board of Supervisors?
Well, first of all, Upper Lake has a town hall meeting once a month. I attended a couple of them, and it's pretty well tight packaged, and people go there. I haven't attended a lot of them. Currently, we're getting ready in Upper Lake to do the strawberries and cream. It used to be Western Days. Now it's strawberry and cream Western Days, and ice cream, strawberry and whipped. I don't forget something like that. Strawberry something and ice cream. And
if you add the crepes to that, you got
yeah, right, exactly. But they're all getting around that, and as a community. And I just thought about that we have our own town hall meeting, and I think it would be great representation, for any candidate, any representative of a district who could get direct input from each community by 2 representatives there. So it occurred to me that out of the 7 or 8 hamlets that we have across District 3, that it would be great if they all had their own little town hall meetings. I know that Spring Valley has their town center. I know that they have a president of that, Jim, I think is Cayley. I can't remember his last name, but he was a great guy, and he spoke highly of the township and how people participate. And actually, I'll tell you, the people in Spring Valley were incredibly aware of what's going on. And there were lots of issues that they were willing to discuss about how they can make Spring Valley a better place, and how they can do with that lake they have there. I drove up to look at the lake, and I saw that the lake is, pretty much down to nothing, and it needs to be dredged. And it was all kinds of things going on there. There's talk of one constituent talked about another candidate promising to put a second egress road, from exiting from Spring Valley, which is interesting concept. I spoke about that with a couple of firefighters and some other people, and some people commented saying that there was a potential egress road already being there because of access to the lake to do the cleanup there. So. And then others say that it's impossible. So I don't know, but I would be definitely willing to look into that to see what would be, possible for Spring Valley. But back to the community awareness, these people here seemed very aware of their community and very concerned. There was topics brought up about, they increased the speed limit from 25 to 30 miles an hour, and a lot of people felt that it was just too quick for country roads, and they would like to look into that, changing it back to 25. And so when you have an environment of people that are that concerned about their community, that you've got a living system going on there. And for them to be ignored or not to be acknowledged, or at least not to feel that they're being heard, is an injustice. So I've just felt that, if we can get the one or two people there elected by their people there, or volunteer and get them validated, and do that in every hamlet, from Blue Lakes, even Bachelor Valley, Upper Lake, Lucerne, Nice, Glenhaven, the Oaks, and Spring Valley, you would have a great representation, so that the supervisor for that district, should I be fortunate enough to be elected to that position, you would have a direct input and direct contact to what's going on in each hamlet and what the concerns are of all the predominant amount of the citizens in that area. So having armed with that, you'd be able to go with the other board of supervisors, discuss what we're going to do with the budget and how we're going to direct monies and what needs to be done. And because this is what goes on behind the board of supervisors meetings. They actually are talking about, what we're going to do with the budget, who's going to get what, and what needs to be done, and what roads need to be fixed. And so it just seems to me to be a great idea. That way, if for some reason something comes up where there's a huge issue on hand, like we had with Measure N and we had with the marijuana cannabis grows, they had to go all the way out to the fairgrounds, or instead of 20 people gathering into a hall. And, there's talk about how some of the supervisors don't really give respect to certain people. And so if you had, 7 hamlets, if they show up for this, and you got 1 or 2 representatives, you got 14 people in that room, and those other supervisors will know immediately that's not just 14 people indiscriminately sitting in their seats out there, that those 14 people represent 12,000 people who are directly connected and directly listening and giving input. And those 12 or 14 people are giving input to their district supervisor, and to ensure that there can be a smooth transition here in this county, so we can bring all 5 districts up to, just take away from this listing ship, like I've said before, that Districts 3 and Districts 2 need some help. We need to get some things moving here. If all the district supervisors are sincere, and if all the people who are at the top of this hierarchy are sincere about turning this lake around, and due to the vineyards and the wineries, and to Measure L cleaning up the lake for the ecotourism and the kayaking and the hiking and the horseback riding, if they're sincere about this, then they also need to be sincere about recycling the people and making sure not just the districts are cleaned up, but the townships and the people themselves have some places to go, which we talked a little bit about recovery centers, and to make them investment centers, not like 501(c)(3)s, not nonprofit necessarily. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but to show how capitalism really works and how the people of the community can actually invest in their own people, because that's the best thing to invest in. You can invest in stocks and bonds, but with people, when you help people rise up, people stand up to the occasion, and that's what we need here. We need our morality raised. We need all the disparity raised. We really need a lot of attention here, and I really think that this is the opportune time to get it, and I believe this would be one of the ways to obtain that type of attention and respect from the other board of supervisors, recognizing that the community in District 3 is serious about organizing, is serious about uniting, and is serious about having their voices heard in that chamber room. No longer will it be just a contention of, well, those people there, or those people that, or they dress like this. That kind of attitude really has to leave this county's board if they are sincere about turning this county around as a whole. So we'll see, right, if they're sincere.
And I've lived in small towns before, and I can't speak for the hamlets and townships that you're speaking of, since I don't live there, but I know that usually in a small town environment, there's really a tight-knit community. Everybody knows one another. People are concerned about the future of their communities. They want to see progress. They want to see things resolved. They don't want to see stagnation. And is that what you're seeing, that people are concerned that their message is not efficiently being brought to the Board of Supervisors, and this idea of representation within the townships and hamlets can help with that efficiency issue?
Absolutely. That's what I gathered so far in my walk and campaign trail, is that the people really are concerned, and sometimes they're concerned in the opposite direction of other people, but really, overall, their concern is the same. It's just how to get there is a little different at times. But, if we can look at the overall fact that we all have pretty much the same concern. We want safety, we want jobs, we want security with our family, we want to enjoy our county, we want to enjoy the hiking, we want to enjoy the lake, we want to enjoy raising our children, we want to enjoy retiring as grandparents. I mean, everybody has the same desire. It's just that there's a question as to whether or not how we go about to obtain that. Now, I know Denise Rushing did a really good job of outreaching to the communities and has done a lot of good things for the district. And I know that she also, in the beginning, was attempting to do town hall meetings and stuff. So I think the timing is right now. I think we're really seeing, she came on the first advent of the first surge of change here after 16 years with Mitchell and time with Hopkins as supervisor, as district attorney. There was a mood of change in the air, and she came right on that wave. And I think now there's another second wave coming, and I think it's, again, another appropriate time to do another significant type of change here in our communities all around this lake.
And I like the idea because you're in a district where there are no city boundaries. They're all townships. And so there's not that core representational group that already exists that gets to create ordinances, that gets to create change based on public comment, public input, as well as their own decisions that they're making. Just as Clear Lake and Lakeport, they're the only cities that we have, and therefore are the ones making the decisions. The rest are affected just solely by the county. Right. And so I like the idea of extending democracy, bringing it to the towns, creating almost a source of power for those towns by saying, like you were saying, you're not just 14 people, you have 100 people in each town or in each meeting that comes to these meetings that are also supporting what you're doing. I want to say all 12,000, but we all know that not everybody shows up to these meetings, but still they're representing.
You'd be amazed, Bruno, how word of mouth carries. Even though a body might not be present in that town hall meeting,
for sure,
I can guarantee you that there's 12 people whispering in that guy's ear or that woman's ear of what they would like to see in their community. So it's incredible how news travels by word of mouth around here.
And I agree with you, especially when you are in a small town such as that. And so I like the idea, and I think that what I'm seeing is a great idea of leadership to create this type of a system to be able to bring the message and the concerns of the people to the right place, which is the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah. Also, I also mentioned too that in this township and this these people representing their towns would be an opportunity to vet people into the next seat for supervisor, because nobody really needs to make an occupation out of being a supervisor, right? I mean, nobody needs to be elected 2, 3, 4 times unless you're operating under the intention of that if a new supervisor comes in, he's not going to know or she's not going to know what's going on. We have to re-experience them, retrain them, and they have to hope that they go along the same way. I believe this would actually create an environment to where there would be, 12 or 14 people representing this district and these townships, and it would be a way also to groom the next person to come in, to take over, to carry the torch, if you will, like at the Olympics, or the baton for the relay race. That way we can stay on point without worrying about an individual with nepotism and cronyism taking place, because it's really a diverse mix of the community itself as a whole, and it really, really, really would heighten the interests of all the people in those townships. If they've got interest now, I mean, how much more interest would they have if they realize that participating at this level gives them their entrance to politics and to actually community hands-on. So I really think it's a great idea. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think they should do it all the way around all the districts, because that way it would encourage the youth to come and get involved. It would encourage everybody to participate. They could have their own little elections, who they're going to represent as the candidate. I mean, nobody has to step down, obviously. But if the town says, you know what, we want to change, or we just want an opportunity, would you be willing to step down, a supervisor? If he says yes, then fine, it's great. If he says no, then we have a campaign. I mean, I know it sounds kind of trite, but I think it would actually become an asset here to unify this whole county, so that there isn't the threat of good old boys and all this stuff that's going on around now. I mean, you hear all the things that's going on with the sheriff campaign and the DA, and you hear all the news and the media and the talk of town, the gossip, if you will. Who knows what's true and what's not true? But this would be one way, I think, to actually create an election and to actually make it equal, and that people can get up and make their voice count.
And it gives them an opportunity to be informed on what's going on, because unfortunately that's something that we lack as a nation, not just around here, is because some of those meetings are inaccessible to some of the public, if not the majority of the public, that their information comes through word of mouth, which can sometimes, just like when we play telephone, things change and we don't get the right information, and so we're not as informed as we should be. One of the things that I really like that you said is it's true. Nobody is a professional that goes into politics. If you're there for a long time, like let's say somebody like our Congressman John Garamendi, who's been involved in politics for many, many years over his lifetime, most people who start on the local level, they're not professionals. And so to offer these types of meetings that they can get involved in can slowly teach them, how does a meeting work? How is it that you can get actions, not just words, but actions done, so that you can see that change in your community? And I like the idea of almost having it be a training ground, so that not only are you experienced, but people also know who you are and what you've done, and how successful you are as an individual when you represent your community. And I really like those ideas. I think to me that speaks highly of democracy itself, and I hope that it is something that others would want to take on in other districts as well. I mean, Middletown, District, is that District 1? Yeah, District 1 is in the same situation as District 3, where there are no cities. And so it would be an interesting situation to see them also want to take something on like this, because voices need to be heard, and as long as it doesn't create more gridlock, and I think it would not, I think it would create an efficiency situation of the message being brought to the right people in a very, they would gather the information for you and give you the information, so you wouldn't have to go all around to every single place to try to gather that same information. It would help everybody out.
It would be interesting to see if the gridlock would occur, if we'd just get a whole set of, no me, and all these bickering and arguing. I would like to think on a more positive note, though, that I think that when the district benefits overall and they see the prodigious results that they get, I think that the bickering would stop. I think that, if there was an equal balanced playing field here around this lake, there wouldn't be any bickering to begin with. There'd be no, hey, you're getting more than us, or, so I think by the very means of its self-existence would eliminate a large amount of that suspicious nature, the conspiracy theories that someone's getting more than we are. And I think that when you're involved and you're hands-on in a community like that, you're not having to rely on fourth and fifth relayed information. You got it right there. You see what's going on. You see how it develops. And I think that would, in and of itself, would just eliminate a large portion of the suspicious nature that takes place in small communities.
And I think with the technology that's available to us, we can make these things easily accessible to the public at large. And one of the other things that you stated earlier, which I think goes against the idea of gridlock completely, is we have a lot of common ground. Everybody wants to see a positive, good quality of life in our county. We have so much in common. No matter how diverse we are, we can take that step back and find that common ground to be able to say, okay, this is where we're going to start from. Now let's move forward as a group rather than bicker. Well,
that's what's going on right now, if you will, as a transitionary comment with regards to the campaign that's been launched with Yes on N. And so there's a whole community right now, a Yes on N, that's saying they want to be heard, and they think that they know the best way to have safety in the arena. And so there's opponents or proponents. There are proponents for N, and then there are opponents for N. So there's no on N, and there's yes on N, and those are two communities, two groups of people that want the same results, but are operating from a different perspective. Yes on N are mostly families and parents who have children, and they're close to schools, and they've tired of dealing with all this abundance or outrageous grows, in these people's backyards in regular little lots, 50 by 100, and they've got 30, 40 plants peeking out, and it's just it's an overabundant amount of growth taking place of cannabis, and these people are expressing their concern, and rightfully so. And the question is, though, what if we don't operate from a fear base and we operate from an observatory or an observation base? We can look at the facts, what's really going on, and what's best for the community. So the reason I have a no on N is because there's an initiative that should have been brought up in June But for some reason, the coalition that was involved with this cannabis grows weren't able to, or were afraid that they would miss it by a minute and they wouldn't be able to catch the November. So they decided to wait till November, and then they're doing a campaign that says no on N, with hoping that N doesn't pass so the existing urgency ordinance can continue. And the argument that goes with yes people on N, they're saying that they're thinking that if N passes, that all of a sudden law enforcement is going to come out and just swoop down and take care of all these bad people, that are growing marijuana in their neighborhoods, when in fact they can't take care of what's going on right now. So really the best thing that ever happened here to the community with regards to illegal grows and commercial grows, the talk of the talk of N, ordinance number 2997 coming on the table has already scared off. I've talked to people yesterday. They're saying they're moving. They're going to Yolo, Yuba, and that's exactly what one of the supervisors said in his chair. He said, "Look, I just want them to get the hell out of here. I don't care where they go, just not here." Well, this has been impactful. That's exactly what's happening. So whether N passes or not, people are moving. And that's really what people wanted, because what we all want here as residents of this community, as citizens of this community who have fallen in love with this community, a large amount of these people that are voting on yes have been here for generations. And they really love this community. I love this community, but they have a lot more history than I do. So I don't blame them. I'm not taking a position. If you're yes on N, you're not my friend, It's like this. I believe that the best way to enforce this is to do it realistically. But they did kill two birds with one stone, So I think they've been very successful in their campaign just from the beginning. Just the nature of yes has gotten the attention of all the commercial growers, the illegal growers. And
so we have a caller, but before I take the call, I just want to remind everybody, please call 263-3435 to ask John Brosnan some question. We are on 88.1 FM KPFZ. This is Get to Know Your Candidate. We're speaking with John Brosnan. Caller, you're on the air. How are you?
Get to know one of the six anyway, huh?
Yes.
Dallas.
Hi, Don, it's Dallas.
Hi,
yeah.
Dallas.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great.
I'm out there campaigning, too, for one of the other six.
Which one this time, Dallas?
Jim Brown.
Okay.
Jim Brown. I'm supporting him. I think that he would be the thing we need at this point in our history here in Lake County.
Did you let go of Mark Currier then?
I have to say, it has been an amazing supervisorial race this season. All the men who are coming up, who are throwing their hats in the ring, I think every single one of them has good intentions for starters, and many good skills to bring to the fore. And it's going to be really interesting to see what it ends up being. I'm really curious. So, but when there's a season like this, it's an opportunity to really get the interest of the citizens and really get people a little bit more involved than they normally would be. I mean, let's face it, it's been a tough world. The economy sucks. Everybody's just kind of feeling fairly apathetic and defeated.
That's correct.
So I think when there's a thing like this that happens in our community, it gives us a little bit more hope, maybe.
Yeah, I think it does. It certainly gives us more diversity, that's for sure.
Yeah, a little more interest in what's going on in our community. What is it that we really need? What really is important? It's an opportunity to get some of the issues really out there and get people to know what they are. Like, what is Measure N? What is Measure L? What is, what are all these things that we have an opportunity to have our opinion heard by voting,
I agree.
So, anyway, one of the priority issues that I see, and I'll bring it up and maybe you two can discuss it and talk about what things you know about it and ideas that you have. Speaking of the economy, speaking of what we're doing here in our county, the residents who live in Lake County, the Lake County residents that are here all the time, not just the tourists coming in, but people who live here around the clock 24/7 are, living their lives, trying to work or trying to at least, bring money in to afford their housing and afford their food and, be able to have some kind of quality of life. I asked Ray E.B. Carl one day on the Women's Voices show when they were discussing poverty. And at that time, this was a while back, and at that time, she said that 18% of our population here in Lake County lived at or below the poverty line. Well, I talked to her recently, and I asked her did she know what the statistic was. And she's a numbers woman. She's very good. She can get things like that at the tip of her fingers.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so when I asked her that question recently, she says, "Oh, the last I heard, it's 27% of our population here in Lake County live at or below the poverty line."
Do you know what the poverty line level is, Dallas?
That's more than 1 out of 4 people.
I know you like Dallas. Do you know what the poverty level line is?
I believe it's about 11 or 12,000 for one person, and like 30,000 a year for a family of 4, I think. But if someone has that information,
it's
I'd love to have them call in.
It's 30,000. If you're below the 30,000 for a family of a single parent anyway with a couple of kids, it's 30 right beneath the threshold of 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when you received
when we have that high of a population of people that are struggling so much just to get by, there's going to be all kinds of social fabric tears and issues. So,
poverty. I believe that poverty or impoverished men and women resort to petty crime for one thing, if not drugs and alcohol for another, which is kind of why part of my platform, one of the issues of my platform is to try to get everybody interested in the concept that we're recycling our lake, we're recycling the soil, we're trying to keep everything pristine and free from phosphorus overflow. I think we should need to recycle our people here and to actually be able to create an investment type of psychology.
What about human services and social services, John? What's your position on that, and what are some of your ideas on working with our Department of Social Services
I'll speak
and
frankly
taking care
to
of our
that, Dallas,
most fragile?
if I may.
Okay.
Regards to social services that currently take place here, there's lots of people that the county employs. I believe there's 300 employees of the 900 that work in the county here that work social services or indirectly related to that office. So there's a lot of people that
How many did you say?
I think there's about 300 that are related in that arena with the...
Well, I wonder how many are employed by the IHSS. I think that's probably more than 300 just right there.
That might be, but I don't know.
I think they're one of the largest employers, the in-home supportive services.
Well, I know there's 900
total.
Talk
about desperate measures. A lot of people are doing that for a minimum wage.
Maybe you should get your own show, Dallas.
Well, Herb Gura has the union for the IHSS
yes,
workers endorsing him.
He does. He has
well,
a lot
I'm
of
here to tell
endorsements.
you that I know a lot of people who have done that work that aren't necessarily supporting Herb Gura. So he's just getting endorsements from whoever the kingpins are, the leaders of these organizations that say, "Yeah, okay, I'll endorse you."
Dallas, do me a favor. Let's not get into talking about the candidates' names. I'm trying to keep this.
How come?
Well, I would rather not.
You would rather not because you want to have your name out there for the full hour, of course.
No, that's not entirely
I'll get
right, Dallas.
Anyway, so address some of the issues that are concerned, that are concerns for us who live here 24/7, not just the tourists coming in to enjoy our resource. What about our quality of life here? Can you address some of those issues for the rest of your show?
Oh, well, I'll try.
Thank
Dallas. You. Okay, thank you. So Dallas has a lot of good points, and I understand that Dallas is, being the campaign manager for James Brown, and she would like to be able to promote James in any fashion or any way she could. So she wants to discuss the economy here, I suppose, and how we could introduce a better working wage, I guess. I'm not really quite sure exactly. We have another caller, but I'm not really quite sure exactly where she was going. Where I was going, though, if I can, on this show today is to try to avoid leading into any ad hominem attacks or anything that might even look or sound remotely like the idea that the candidate she was talking about getting endorsements. Over the air, I would rather not, or in public forum, I would rather not go down that path and
talk yourself up rather than talk others down.
Well, I think so, and I just don't want to go starting to this nitpicking thing. We can all talk off the record as we wish to anybody, but when we're speaking in a public forum such as public radio or in a forum the public is attending, I just don't think it's wise to go down that path, because we all could fling mud and we can all undermine each other's character, and as such as what Dallas was saying about endorsements.
And I do want to go back to the main question that she was asking, but first we're going to go to the caller. Caller, you're on the air. How are you today?
Hi, it's just Dallas calling back. I just wanted to set the record straight on something. I don't want to nitpick either, John, and I that's another thing I've been impressed with so far anyway in this race, is that there really hasn't been the mudslinging, and I don't mean to come off that way if I am. But I needed to call back right away because I want to set some records straight, and that is I'm not Jim Brown's campaign manager.
Okay.
I'm just one of the Indians. He's the chief.
Wow.
And we're this is a grassroots effort. We don't we don't necessarily have in our community the ones who are really supporting Jim the kind of resource that some of the other candidates have. That's all. But I'm not managing his campaign. I'm supporting him because I believe that he's the right one. That's all.
Well, that's great.
And I'm putting a lot of my own time and effort into it. So
well, that's wonderful.
I just want to make sure that's clear to the community.
He's very fortunate to have you
I'm
there.
not getting paid to do this. I'm
we're having a
out of my heart.
conversation here.
That's all. Huh?
Okay. I was just wondering if we were having an actual conversation here.
Yeah.
I was trying to tell you, Dallas, that in between breaths, that Jim Brown's very lucky to have you on his team as a player, and I believe that you bring forward a lot of assets to his campaign, even though you may not.
Like
be
I said,
his
it's an
manager.
opportunity. No matter who wins the race, it's an opportunity to get a lot of issues out there and inform our citizens. And
Yes,
all of
you
that.
did say
Get
that.
people involved. So, okay, carry on. Thank
All
you.
right. Well,
Bye.
thank you.
And I agree that it starts with a conversation. You can't just solve a problem without having the conversation, or else you're not getting the public input.
Right.
And so let's go back to, if you don't mind, the question that she was asking, because we can all agree that there is an issue in Lake County, whether it's jobs, whether it's just the social issues that we are dealing with. Unfortunately, we find ourselves at the bottom of many lists throughout the state. Our county, unfortunately, is not highly effective in solving some of those problems. I know that you've discussed in the past the idea of and I think you kind of were hinting at it already with the recycling of people, where you were saying to try to help them understand how the system works so that they can jump in with both feet and really take advantage of, not to say the system is great, we love the system, but we do live within a capitalist system, and it does exist here in Lake County, and you do have an idea of how to try to get people back to understand how to take advantage of that system so they can help themselves.
Well, there's different types of, there's professions.
And caller, if you can hold just for 1 second.
Yeah, there's professions and there's vocations, right? So there's blue collar worker and there's white collar worker, and then we have the IHSS workers. At one of the first forums I had at the Democratic Club, or whatever they were calling themselves at the time, at the Sons of Italy, when they all gathered together, including Herb, an IHSS worker was there sitting next to me, and she had asked me and told me about the situation with regards to their raise and how the current Board of Supervisors neglected and turned down their raise. So apparently the minimum raise is being raised. The minimum wage is being raised, and by approximately $1.50. So their current wage, they thought, should also raise by $1.50.
Because nobody wants to find themselves back at the minimum.
Right, which I thought was perfect sense. And I told her if I was supervisor that I would vote for that, if the money's there. I don't know where the money comes from. I'm not a supervisor. I didn't spend the last year with my nose in the budget book that I have. I mean, I'm a general contractor, so I have business to take care of. But I do know this, that if the money's there, then naturally I would intend on giving them their raises. Now, whoever becomes supervisor is going to have to look into that. I mean, it's called a living wage, but it should also be fair wage.
Exactly. Caller, you're on the air. How are you?
Well, I had something else on my mind, but along that line,
Ken?
be a contractor too, and
How are you, Ken?
One of the rules of my business was if they ain't worth a certain amount of money, I don't need to be stumbling over them. And it was always quite a little above the minimum wage. And my wife done that work for the last few years of her life, and if there's anything harder than that, I couldn't do it.
It's tough. It is tough work. I know. It's hands-on work, and you got to care, and you can't.
Well, you got to have a heart.
That's
and
right.
You really got to have a sponsor, because you can't make a living doing it.
Well, not today, but we're going to hopefully change all that, right, Ken? This is Ken, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had to make sure.
What I originally called to say is I hope that gentlemen politicians don't turn out to be an oxymoron.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate your humor, Ken, as usual. But you're accurate and you're correct about the IHSS workers, that they're dedicated and they work hard. Now, I know one of the supervisors currently were mocking them, saying that they were drug addicts and should be tested. And so, that may or may not be true in every profession, at every level, including, look at politics today. You should test them. Half of them are getting arrested for drunk and non-prescription drugs. I mean, everybody is susceptible to drug addiction based upon the stress that they have in their life if they have a pre-existing condition. So you're right on, Ken. I mean, you're right on the money when it comes to these IHSS workers.
Feels first thing that comes in my mind.
Well, Ken, we're not. This is a public radio show, so we're gonna try to keep it smooth.
I don't have my beep button
we
here.
don't have to.
It's just that it seems like everybody's answer to not paying anybody for what they do is you might be wasting the money. Well, what the hell are they doing with that up there at that college?
Well, Ken. That's the thing about status quo. Number one, when you have a status quo mentality. Number two, when you're dealing with funds that are being granted by the government. You know, my family was involved in nonprofit organizations, and they built the Irish Cultural Center. And my dad and his 4 brothers, and then the Irish community got together, and they actually were meeting in our garage before they. But when they finally got this thing put together, it was donated. All of it was donated money and donated labor, and that's a huge building. It's got to be about 40,000, 25,000 square feet of building right there in Sloat in San Francisco by the zoo. And
Wow.
Once the board of directors got started, it's amazing how all of a sudden that money that really isn't theirs personally becomes a major issue, and how and where it's going to be divided and who gets what. I think it's innate in the animal instinct. You got to rise above your primal instincts, and you got to start thinking about the overall better for everyone. You cannot get caught up in money. You have to be responsible. You have to be accountable. But my God, we have to be sensible. And I think that, you know what, when you drive someone into the ground with disparity because you're trying to economically rule over them, it's a tragedy.
You're a fortunate old white man. Why keep trying to get more? Because you ain't going to get to use it that long anyhow.
Well, God willing, we will be able to stay around for a long time.
And I think that people should practice the act of utilitarian, the greatest happiness for the greatest amount of people. That's typically what the Board of Supervisors, I feel in my mind, should be trying to do,
Well, that's
rather
kind
than
of what
accomplish.
democracy is, you know. I mean, when you think about it.
Yeah, but unfortunately, as we see it, it doesn't always work out that
Right,
way.
Right.
I've spent 72 years, or no, about 50 years, trying to figure out what democracy is, and I'm sorry, but I disagree a little with you about capitalism. That's all I've ever lived under, and I'm still waiting for it to work like they said.
Yeah. Well, I guess you got to be somewhat. I guess you got to get up early like the bird, right?
Well,
To
I
catch that
always
worm,
did,
huh?
and I had my own company by the time I was 21, and I made a lot of money in my life, but none of it stuck to me.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, thank you very much for your phone call. We have another caller on the line. Caller, you're
Thanks,
on the air.
Ken.
How are you?
Good morning. It's Herb Gura.
Hi, Herb Gura.
Hey, John. How's it going?
It's going good so far.
So, just want there are over 1,000 IHSS workers in Lake County, and just to clarify what Dallas said,
Okay.
they took a vote of the entire membership. That's how I got their endorsement.
Oh,
So I'm sure there are people that support other candidates, but
is that what Dallas was saying? You're
well,
clarifying
she
that
said
for
she
her?
knows people that don't support me.
Oh, I see.
So, who are IHSS
That's
workers,
correcting.
and I'm
I would
sure
say that
I'm
that
sure
would be-
that's the case. But
That'd be more like correcting Dallas than instead of clarifying her, right?
whatever.
I don't know. Okay.
Whatever.
All right. Okay. I'm just trying to follow here, Herb. You know what I mean?
So anyway, I just wanted to say how she said. I think what she said was, they said, sure, just the top big shots in the organization decided, but that's not the case. They took a vote of their membership.
Well, you know how I feel about endorsements, Herb, and you know how I feel about special interest groups, and you know how I feel about party line affiliations.
So I
you
wanted
know.
to talk about about a raise and where the money comes from, and
Which money is that, Herb?
money for anything in the budget. How like if they're going to give a raise to IHS workers, where's that money going to come from? But not just that. Any place where the board might see a need to fund something. And obviously, you have a budget, you have a general fund, and any time you spend money on one thing, you have to take it away from another thing. And so the way a lot of government entities put their budget together is that the budget is handed to them by staff, and they
Administration. That's correct.
yeah, well, by the business manager of their organization, and then they might make a few little tweaks here and there, and then they rubber stamp it. So
The supervisors rubber stamp it.
Yeah.
That's correct.
generally how
Or they don't approve it, right? They can either
well,
approve it
they
or don't
almost
approve
always do though, because the supervisors don't really take the time to look at
But if you became supervisor, Herb, you would take the time, right?
Well, what I'm saying is there's a different way to put a budget together, and the way we do it in our school district, and the way we've been doing it for the last 5 or 6 years since we had some budget cuts and we had to make decisions about what to cut and what not to cut, is that we instead of starting from the top, because if they give you the budget like that, you have very little leeway to decide where to make cuts and what to fund. So what we did instead was took the entire budget and built it again from the bottom up.
Good.
We invited the public to come. We had a series of workshops over several weeks, and lots of people from the public came.
That's great.
And we took the budget line by line, and we decided, are we getting our money's worth out of this thing? Are we getting our money's worth out of this thing? And so as we discussed and decided what our priorities were, we were able to fund the things that were important and to make cuts in places where we didn't feel like we were getting the best bang for our buck. And we were able to keep our core programs in place and still balance our budget. And
so essentially, Herb, you're saying that you invited the school parents and teachers involved
anybody who wanted to come. We held our budget workshops on Saturday morning until Saturday late afternoon.
So you got the participants and the people that were involved in this to actually say, "Oh, this is where we think we need to cut the budget."
Yeah, teachers, parents, kids, even kids.
Great.
And everybody pitched for their programs, or
I wonder if we could do that if we were supervisors. Could we afford to do that? Could we actually get each district? I mean, that would be a lot of people involved, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a lot of people.
You think it'd be possible to do something like that
only
at that
small,
level?
Not everybody participates in these things, but at least you get that kind of input.
Right.
And at least you get the people from the different departments saying why they think their department is
right. So as it refers to IHSS raises, which is the topic we're on, you think that maybe if you were supervisor that you would try to get, I guess in this particular case, the over 1,000 IHSS workers as well as their families that they're helping to give input. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, if you see a living wage for county employees as a priority, then you can budget that money rather than starting from a place of saying we have no money because the money's already been divvied up by staff and they've left us with no leeway to make any other choices.
Right.
So if you build the budget from the bottom, you can at least realistically to see if you have the money or not.
Right. That's a lot of work. I know. I've sat on Skyline College when they were doing their budget and how they handled it and how they create numbers that are not necessarily reflective of what they actually need, but to prepare themselves for the following year budget, they had to inflate their, so I mean, there's lots of sleight of hand that takes place in trying to create a budget that's honest, and so I think you're kind of on the right track. But that girl that was talking to me when we were at the Sons of Italy that day, the member of IHSS, was concerned more about the idea and the fact that her current wage was right now reflective of about $1.50 higher than the minimum wage, and then now the minimum wage is going to be rising up to, I forget what it was, almost $10 or something, and
not for a couple of years, but yeah.
And she was concerned about the fact that her wage was not rising accordingly to that minimum wage, which I was in complete agreement with her that it should rise accordingly.
Yeah, well.
And that was her concern. As usual, her concern was
wanted
to make sure. Her concern, Herb, was that she, as an individual IHSS worker and union member, that she was going to get her fair share and her money that she knew that she needed, which would be more of a living wage than a minimum wage. And I'm in total agreement with her, and as you are too. I know that you are, Herb.
All Lake County workers across the board
right.
Are paid lower than their counterparts in other places.
No, I agree with you, Herb. We're very similar, and we stand very similar on a lot of things, Herb.
Yes, that's true. So anyway, if you want to attract good workers and if you want to have high quality service from your workers, then you need to pay them fairly.
You have to give them incentive to come to work. You have to, we have enough
to come to work here and to work here.
That's right.
What you hear the sheriff talking about how a lot of people come here on their first sheriff's job, and as soon as they've had some training behind them, they're off to some other county after we've trained them. And that's true for, I think, a lot of people in counties where the wages are lower.
That's right.
It's true for teachers in a lot of school districts. They get their first job at a low-paying school district, and then they move on.
That's correct. And hopefully if we can turn this ship around that they're talking about, this listing ship with Districts 3 and 2, if we can turn it all around, tourism picks back up, the lake gets clean, the tulies are planted, the kayaks are floating, the horses are riding, the people are hiking, the vineyards are selling wine, the wineries are open, the recovery centers are available for people who wake up just from post-traumatic stress disorder alone. Forget the fact they may or may not be alcoholic, drug addicted, or impoverished petty criminals. Maybe they're just suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a form of disparity. We get all this recycling going on. We get all this interest going on, and we turn this lake around, and we become a tourist destination spot once again. And pretty soon, the money will be available to pay the deputy sheriffs a good wage to keep them here. The IHSS workers will get a more than fair living wage, and we can all start living like human beings in other counties that are successful.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, but I do think there's some money available now.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. And you know what?
Before all that.
And it'll take exactly what you talked about, Herb. It'll take exactly that to sit down with that budget, to sit down and look at what's going on, and to have the courage of a lion, to have the fervor in your heart, to move it forward and be able to discuss it amongst the other supervisors. And that's exactly what it will take. And you know that, Herb.
Yep, we both know that.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for calling, Herb. I
Good
appreciate
show,
it.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Herb.
Bye.
And that kind of brings us back to your township ideas that you were we were talking about earlier, where extra representation, extra feedback from the community gives more power to be able to change that budget in the ways that it's needed to help the most amount of people.
There's nothing like the voice of the people.
A loud voice.
That's right. That will get the attention of the current body of government, whether it be congressmen, assemblymen, supervisors, mayors, councilmen. It gets the attention, and that's really what the people deserve. They deserve equal, fair, impartial attention by their elected officials who are designed to represent them, not their pocketbooks, not their future, but to represent the future of the county, of the whole people. And that's quite an order. It's quite a tall order, because when you do get power, people then tend to have to adjust to that power. I mean, look at when a guy wins a lottery for $1 million or whatever it is, $50 million. Half of them are broke, before 3 years ago, and the other half get drunk and become addicted. The other half, how many halves do we have here? Let me see.
No, and also,
I think we need a station identification for sure. With all these long-winded discussions, we haven't had a.
So you've been listening to 88. Why do I say 81?
I don't know.
I've just been off today. You've been listening to 88.1 FM KPFZ. This is Get to Know Your Candidate with John Brosnan. And, of course, we've been speaking with John, who has a website at www.brosnan4district3.com. Look him up on Facebook as well, Brosnan for District 3. And his phone number, hopefully I have it correct this time, is 707-501-7157.
That's it.
All right, I fixed it.
And the opinions you hear here?
Oh, yes, and I need to read this. So just a reminder, please remember that the opinions expressed on this or any other KPFZ program are the opinions of the speaker and do not necessarily represent the views of KPFZ LCCR, its members, staff, or supporters. These are the opinions, views of the speakers only.
So I was surprised that we didn't get any calls on the Measure N, and I guess, again, it's the Monday morning, 9 o'clock. It's, the day after Mother's Day. I don't think everybody races up to their radio and, let's listen to John and Bruno. But it would have been nice to have gotten some calls. Hopefully next week, people will call up about this Measure N and Measure L. I think those are two very heavy, important topics that need to be discussed, I think at radio public level. Because there is language in both those ordinances that I think the public really needs to know about to make an informed decision with regards to passing or not passing these two measures. So I'm just kind of surprised at that. And also it's
definitely been a hotly debated issue as far as the public itself. The conversation is definitely hot out
there. On Facebook, it's incredibly hot.
And I am finding I am finding that there's some types of misinformation from both sides that are coming, and it would be nice to kind of clarify and make sure that everybody has the accurate information. Oh, yeah. We have a caller on the air. Caller, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
Hi,
good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Clayton, and who's John?
Yes, correct. What did you say your name was?
Clayton.
Clayton Duncan.
Oh, hi, Clayton. How are you?
Oh, okay. I've asked Jim this question, and I think with Judy from 52. Okay. I'm always working on this Bloody Island thing. And,
right, I know. We talked about that about 4 or 5 weeks ago. You called up about the archaeological digs to.
And I want to know, because I came back in 1978, and I used to hear these stories about Bloody Island. Then I looked it up in the museum, and I found it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything that our people were talking, my relatives were talking about, it was true. And my great grandmother survived that, and so I was born in 1950, and my mom took care of my grandma, and her grandma, my great grandma, and those 4 years of her life, from 106 to 110. Well, I was a baby till almost 4 years old.
I remember you told me the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel I owe this lady, what she wants, and it's like that was all her relatives that got killed there.
No, I hear you, brother. Let me tell you something, Clayton. Not to cut you short, but I'm sitting here looking at a poster here that says "Forgive them, grandfather," and it shows the little girl under the water with a tule reed trying to breathe air while the massacre's going on. And I pointed it out to Norb about last week. I said, Norb, did you ever look at that picture? Isn't that beautiful? And he never really looked at it and never really understood what it was. And every time I look at that picture, Clayton, it just makes my heart weep. For the horrific injustices that took place here on Bloody Island. So go ahead and finish what you were saying. I didn't want to interrupt you. But
I feel like everything's run by energy, and so a lot of this energy that was left here was a big pile of poo-poo.
Yeah, that's
and
a nice
so
way
now
of putting
let's clean this mess up, together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's clean this mess up together, and let's fix that.
That's right, Clayton.
So I feel those people need a proper burial, and then the energy will change here.
I think you're right. I think, you know what, it's only the humane thing to do, the civil thing to do, and the wetlands project, it's a long project. There's no issue of time. I think that, the sooner we get on that, the sooner we look at that, the sooner everybody recognizes and come to peace with that we need to bury this thing properly, as you put it, and move forward as a county, as a whole county, with all of its diversity together as one. I couldn't agree with you more, Clayton.
And Clayton, we're running out of time here, so we're going to have to let you go. Thank you very much for your phone call. We've been talking with John Brosnan today. Please go out and register to vote.
Definitely.
I believe there's only, the limit is around, I want to say May 19th, but I'm not sure of the exact date, but it's 15 days prior to the election date. Mm-hmm. So go online. It's very easy. You can fill it all out online.
Go to my website.
Go to John's website at brosnanfordistrict3.com. There's a link for you to register to vote.
I know I would stumble if I didn't have Norm here, so thank you very much.
Let's thank Heidi for showing up today with her
and thank you, Heidi, from SSS, for coming here with her camera to go ahead and film this show for us. We'll go ahead and post that on the website as soon as we have that up. Thank you for all the phone calls that we received.
Thanks, Dallas. Thanks, Clayton, and thank you, Herb. We appreciate your call-in.
From Ken and everyone else who called. It's going to be a beautiful week this week. Make sure to put on the sunblock because it's supposed to hit the hundreds, if not more. And so, have a good day.